On this episode of Motorsport Recently, we look back at the 24 Hours of Le Mans for our second ever Le Mans special. This is Triple Crown Racing, let's get into it. Hello everyone and welcome to Motorsport Recently. My name is Jack McKenzie and joining me on the mic are my usual partners in crime, the wonderful Chris Whitfield and the perfect Caitlin Penny. Welcome to our Le Mans special. Now, bear with us, and I can actually hear myself, so that's a bit strange.
Yeah, you have a bit of an echo going on there, Jack.
On my side?
Yeah, I think it
Not on my end.
No, I can hear it. I think it might be on Chris's end, actually.
Okay.
What? How?
Not
That's a bit
entirely
strange.
sure, but I can hear it as well. That is weird. Okay.
It's not me.
Anyway, double the fun. Alright, so...
It stopped.
To be a shorter episode of Motorsport Recently, not only because we are covering one race, but I have to do my second session in the OzNZ combined Le Mans 24 Hours. I'm not sure if how many of you guys are tuning into that, but the rest of the race is happening today. If I work out who's streaming that particular session, I'll send it to the Discord server or something. So anyway,
Go on,
welcome
then.
to
Give
the
us
show.
an update. Give us an update. How's your race going?
Well, it's not. The last session didn't go particularly well, so I might have to do a bit of a recovery drive. But whatever the case. Anyway, so for this episode, I have asked Chris Whitfield to bring a cup with some change. Now, Chris, have you brought that cup with your change?
Yes. Ow.
I have brought that. Right, I should explain what that is for. So since we were talking about Le Mans, for every time that Chris talks about the Keating Motorsport car, if we are not talking about GTE Am or haven't been talking about the Keating Motorsport car, he will put one of the coins into the cup.
That's a good idea. The trouble is, now he's going to be conscious about it. Now he's going to be thinking about it.
So no, but I guarantee it will happen at least once.
Surely. Okay, surely.
First of all,
You okay there, Chris?
oh, I forgot what I was gonna say now.
That's alright.
First of all, I think my fuel tank's a little. I think my cup's a little, about 100 milliliters over.
Oh, Chris. Does that count, Jack? You be the judge.
I think it was about 100 milliliters over. But
yeah. Well, I'm saying yes, it is. Put one in the cup. There we go. That's it. Well, this could be quite entertaining. And with that thoroughly explained, in my opinion, I believe you should get into one of the most important races of the year, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which of course happened last week. Now,
Right.
we won't be doing this in our sort of usual format. I think because it was such a long race, we should talk about sort of the main points about what's going on in order of class. So, of course, we start with LMP1, which predictably was won by Toyota. So the number 8 car won its class with Kazuki Nakajima, Sebastian Buemi, and Fernando Alonso, and they've won their class. Now, I don't think either of you would really have anything to say about how the fact that Toyota won, because I think everyone saw that coming.
It was basically a foregone conclusion now that they've gotten their cars reliability sorted.
I very much thought it would be the other Toyota, especially after the race started. Of course, my prediction from before the race was the 8 Toyota. However, after qualifying, that became very clear that it wasn't the leading car. What actually happened to the 7 in the end? It had some kind of problem, I think.
Jose Maria Lopez happened.
Well, I think race fixing is what happened, but we'll get to that momentarily.
Now.
So the car
Now, it's not race fixing.
Now, the car that... Okay, I should explain. The car... This is my unbiased explanation, by the way. The car that led for 12 consecutive hours, which was the number 7 car, decided to have 2 punctures within the span of a couple of laps. So I believe it had... How big was the gap to the 8 car at the time?
About 50 seconds.
Not sure. Big.
50... Okay, it had quite a big gap to the number 8 car. So when that car pit for the first time for what was supposedly a puncture, was significantly at that point, and then apparently they had another puncture. The car had to pit again, and it lost the lead to the number 8 car, and that's how the order would stay until the end. Now,
okay, Jack, nice theory, but the thing is, if they were going to do it in that way, they likely hadn't told the drivers about it, because the drivers would very much oppose to that. If
it's always possible. I mean, just saying.
Okay.
Just saying.
If they call the car into the pit lane saying, you know, you've got a puncture, box, usually the driver can feel that, and if they don't feel it, they don't box. So for that to have happened, the drivers would have to be in on it. I really don't think that the drivers of the 7 car would be in on that. I don't think they would give up the race lead.
Hold
on. And if they were, they would have done it on the track. Admittedly, it would have caused quite a scandal, but still, it's the safest way to do it.
And
ahead,
also, the problem was the puncture could have happened when Lopez fell off the road a few times during the race. Like, it could have been built up, like, could have been like rubber or clag built up on the wheel arches that caused the puncture. Although apparently I was hearing that there was a problem with the tire sensor.
Exactly.
On one of them.
Yes, I believe it was a sensor issue that they say cost them the victory. Admittedly, that is the second year in a row that the 7 has been leading and then has made a mistake or has had something happen and has lost the race victory. And it does make sense for the... I'm just saying, it does make sense for the team to favourite the 8 car, as that's the car with all of the PR and the sponsorship. However, I don't think that's what happened. I think that it's just people looking for a story where there isn't one. And
I'd like to go more in depth to my theory then. So just what you said before, so you said the drivers would feel it. Well, the thing was that what they apparently had was a slow puncture. Then they had 2 slow punctures. So, I mean, I can understand 1 slow puncture happening, but then 2 in the span of a couple of laps seems like, I mean...
Within how many hours was this puncture? What hour was this puncture?
The last one, essentially, pretty much.
Exactly.
And yeah, so exactly. So and
exactly.
You can see...
There's 24 hours worth of tire debris, like tire debris and carbon fiber shards and other detritus that's on the racing surface. There's no way that it would have been anything other than a maybe Lopez ran something over. We just don't know.
Perhaps, but then also you could see this entire year that Toyota have obviously favoured the number 8 car, and I think you'll agree with me on that one. This entire year they've always favoured the number 8 car, and then
well, why do you think they hired Jose Maria Lopez?
He's essentially
the team's boat the team's AM driver. Everything that happens with the number 7 has seemingly happened with him in the car.
They wouldn't
Like
hire a driver specifically to make mistakes. That doesn't happen. Really, I just
Well, I
think
know that.
Yeah, really, I just think this whole thing is probably people looking too far into it. It's just, the 8 car won, basically. That's all
Now,
there is to it.
unfortunately, I forgot to bring my tinfoil hat, but I believe something is afoot here.
And it
I
won't
don't
be
think
the
this
first
is quite
and it
right.
won't be the first time that we mention something mention another victory handed to someone else.
Ah, dear. Anyway, I should say hello to Fantas13 in the chat. He's actually copied your guys' thing and put the eyes emoji in there. So
Hey,
that's always
Eyes.
eyes emoji. So that's always good to see. Anyway, so the number 8 car won the race, followed by the number 7 car. Now, the LMP 1.5 victory, so this is, of course, the non-hybrid cars that we're referring to, that went to the number 11 SMP racing car that finished third.
It was looking good for the number 7, which was my pick, the SMP car. It was looking very good for them.
17.
And then 17, sorry. Igor Aruchev crashed it. I think something may have broken, judging by the way he speared off. But yeah,
he broke a left rear suspension mounting, I believe.
Okay, yeah, he went ploughing off into that barrier, and the car was out. So, yeah, not great.
Yeah. So the win went to the number 11. Well, the LMP 1.5 win went to the number 11 SMP racing car. Now, before we move on to our last point, is there anything else we want to talk about LMP 1?
Maldonado is back. He did another Maldonado, which was kind of
that's
fun.
LMP2, Caitlin.
That's LMP2.
Oh yeah, wrong Dragon Speed. Sorry, but the other
Wrong Dragon Speed.
wrong
yes,
Dragon
exactly.
Speed. Yeah, the other
one had
have
a
issues.
litany of problems.
It did.
Oh yes,
yeah.
it did. That was unfortunate. I was quite sad because just because of the livery on that Dragon Speed car, I was actually rooting for it, but unfortunately, it didn't do particularly well. Obviously, I believe that it should be illegal to make a car that looks that good. I think, well, I at least think that number 10 Dragon Speed wins prize for the best looking car on the grid.
Yeah. I think. I'm not actually sure who I give that to. I'm pretty sure before the race I said probably the Racing Team Netherlands car, which is a good-looking car.
Has golf livery.
Yeah. I don't know.
Was unfortunate for Dragon Speed.
I actually like the art car. I
like the art
not
car.
afraid. I'm not afraid to say that I like the art car.
That's a
the Rebellion.
Anyway, I think liveries aside, neither Rebellion or Dragon Speed did particularly well, and the 11 SMP car was the only one. Well, it had the smoothest of the LMP 1.5 liveries. Not liveries. Races.
Didn't Rebellion come third?
Fourth.
Fourth.
Who was the 1.5 victor?
The 11 SMP.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry. Okay, jolly good.
And I think that's enough said about LMP1. We'll move on to our final point. And Caitlin, I believe you have a jingle for this. The LMP1 championship goes to the number 8 Toyota.
Nando's the champion, you see. Forget Nakajima and Remy. Nando's the champion. Nando's the champion. Toyota hybrid and Nando a champion of the World Endurance Championship. Nando's the champion. Thank you, Jack. There was actually less LMP2 action this year than there usually is. There was a bit of a... There was... Did I just mute you guys? I think I may have done.
May have
You
done.
did not.
Well,
I think I muted you for a couple of seconds. Sorry. Okay, so in LMP2 there was slightly less action than usual, I think. As I said, Maldonado'd. There wasn't really a fight for the end. I think Signatech Alpine very much had that in the bag for quite a long time, that 36 car. Racing Team Netherlands was doing well. They had an incident. There were a couple of other cars that had small incidents, but really, I don't think anything significant came out of LMP2 this year.
well, there was one thing, and I think, Chris, you want to talk about this.
It was actually the fact that the battle between the DPI cars, and yes, I call them those. Thank you to the GT Hub people. Pick those names up. Basically, the fight for the lead was actually quite intense for about 15 hours. Between the 36 Signatech Alpine and the G Drive car.
Those were
That
probably
actually
the
wasn't
hours
what
that
I was referring to.
Those
That
were
wasn't what
probably...
I was referring to.
Okay, those are probably the hours that I didn't see. Sorry.
See, Chris, I was actually talking about one car that you wanted to finish the race but didn't.
Oh is ARC Bratislava, which by the way is one of the was one of the feel good stories with who was at the wheel, Caitlin?
That would have been Henning Enqvist, and he crashed something like 4 times in 2 laps.
And managed to actually drive the car back to the garage under his own power. Miro Konopka did 1 lap, but unfortunately Miro Konopka did 1 lap, but unfortunately they had too much steering damage, and they retired from the race, which was a shame because they were going like, because just finishing a race at Le Mans is an accomplishment unto itself, and like they tried to get it back on the road. Miro did 1 lap in the car, and then unfortunately, as so often happens at Le Mans, they unfortunately they weren't able to finish. The damage was too big.
That was a bit
continue.
unfortunate for them.
Yeah,
there
it was sad because I was like, really wanted them to run. I really wanted them to finish the race. And like, because as you know, I love the small teams. Like
Minnows!
they're the minnows. Yes, like that's why I'm actually looking on Twitter for Manta updates at the minute.
Oh yeah, I think we'll have to get onto that in miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and are therefore covering an ITM Bing. But
Yes.
yeah, anyway. Yeah, the ARC Bratislava car, it was doing well up until that point. Henning Enqvist. I often say, if you're driving a damaged car or one that's poorly struggling, you have to drive slower. You have, however slowly you think you're going, you have to be slower. And he just proved that. He went off at the Mulsanne, possibly picked up some damage, possibly some gravel on the tyres, then shoved it into the wall Indianapolis, and then on his way back, when he knew full well the car is damaged, shoved it into the wall again at the Porsche S's. To be honest, that's a bit of a numpty moment there for Henning Engqvist.
In fairness, it looked like the right front had actually collapsed.
Doesn't matter. If he'd been going slower, it wouldn't have mattered.
What can happen at Le Mans is that if you make even a small mistake, it can put you out of a groove, and then if just one mistake leads to another, as soon as you break that consistency, you'll probably end up making a lot of mistakes. So that was probably what happened to the ARC, but yeah, that was a lot of crashes. Like Maldonado would be proud, but we will get onto Maldonado in a second, actually.
I can actually get into Maldonado now. From what I saw, something broke. It wasn't him. It was the car. And I know people often say, "Oh, Maldonado crashed," but yeah, that wasn't on him. I'm afraid that was a mechanical issue that caused that. I'm afraid at Terre Rouge.
If that didn't happen, we could have had Maldonado as either a Le Mans winner or World Endurance Champion, and that is slightly disappointing. We all liked it when he won.
They would have had to get around Signatech.
Yeah,
he's Maldonado. He can do that.
In fairness, the fake Alpine would have had to drop out of the race in order for that to happen.
Well, I'm sure the right man for the wheel to make that happen was in the car.
I'm not quite sure where you're getting that from, actually, because I can't, no matter where I look,
They were running fourth at the time.
Okay, I can't see the start of the incident. I can only see the aftermath. So I don't know, actually, how it started and whether it was his fault or not.
Well, I'm sure Maldonado would have found a way around the Signatech Alpine car. He's Maldonado, and I think you know.
Although I will say,
Grand Prix winner Pastor Maldonado. We shouldn't forget.
Yes. Although I will say one thing that kind of infuriated me was the driving standards of his teammate during practice, or during the first qualifying session on Thursday.
Oh,
where,
do you
mean
mean
where Roberto Gonzalez decided
Yes.
to turn into the racing line to try and straighten out his car after he had spun, knowing there was a car there. I'm sorry, he was not flagged. Like, he was not flagged at all. He was not told that he could re-enter the track, and he just speared right into the number 7 Toyota during qualifying. Like, I'm sorry, that was wrong.
Absolutely,
That was not cricket in my mind.
And it reminds me of sorry. So one of the reasons I really, really didn't like it was the way that he acted like he couldn't have done anything better afterwards. You know, he was being all defensive about it, and I think he said something like, "Oh, it just came up too quickly. I couldn't see it." And I'm like, yeah, exactly. That's why you need to be taking more care. Yeah. But anyway, Roberto Gonzalez, there you go.
Am driver in the... Am driver in the simplest of terms.
But yeah, we'll...
Emphasis on simple in that particular... Emphasis on simple in that particular instance.
Does anyone have anything more to say on LMP2?
I reckon that's done and dusted, to be honest.
Alright, the number 36 Signatech Alpine was the race winner, and the number 36 Signatech Alpine won the championship, so I'd say that was a fantastic effort from that car. We'll move on to GTE Pro.
Wrong class.
Well, we'll get to GT.
That's right.
We'll get to GT.
That's right. I did that. Wrong class.
Okay.
He's going to be very poor by the end of this. Anyway,
I've got some change on my desk.
Yes, well,
So,
Right.
GTE Pro in the opening stages had some of the best racing of the series. There were Porsches, there were BMWs, there were Corvettes, all in the mix, swapping places. It was utterly fantastic racing. This was, not just in the first hour, although the first hour was great. This continued all the way into the third hour, the fourth hour. And yeah, just GT always fantastic. It's just a shame that one of the Corvettes got taken out so early, and I did say taken out because although the stewards judged it to be the fault of the Corvette, it was absolutely not. Basically, just to remind you what happened on that instant, the Corvette was going up the inside of a couple of cars were going up the inside of a GTE AM Porsche in the Porsche S's.
Driven by Mr. Hoshino.
Yeah, indeed.
Satoshi Hoshino.
The Corvette was sticking to its line. It had got itself by far enough alongside the Porsche. Its nose was actually ahead of the Porsche by the time they got to the apex. The Porsche turned in and took them both off. This was also from Satoshi Hoshino, I think, who of course, had previously spun about 3 or 4 times. He was being a bit of a hazard out there, and to be honest, I have no idea how the ACO thought that was the Corvette's fault, and the penalty was absolutely not deserved. But anyway, in the end...
Yeah, I have an opinion on that.
Go ahead.
Of course I do. Yeah, that was completely on Hoshino. You do not turn into an apex knowing there's a car there. They drill that into every driver's mind. Even when you're in racing school, they drill that into your mind. You do not do silly moves like that and expect. And I'm sorry, I have to blame the ACO on this one, but like. Their decision to penalize Marcel Fessler for that? I'm sorry. That's the equivalent of saying... Oh, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here.
It's the victim's fault because they stood in the way of the bullet.
Yep, pretty much. Pretty much.
I would say a penalty for Marcel Fessler just kind of adds insult to injury, considering the state that car was in afterwards.
And then we'll discuss this in GTM, but the 88 retired shortly after, while they were fixing the car, because, and I quote, Mr. Hoshino was feeling uncomfortable getting back behind the wheel to do the rest of his drive time.
Good.
When I heard that, I was like, sorry? First of all, you lack the experience, you're a bronze-rated driver and have to do this, and C, you have basically let the team down because of your incompetence.
Okay,
I'm sorry, but...
At that point, I think what he did there was probably the best thing. He realised that he was a hazard, and he took himself off the track. That's good. Yes, he let the team down. To be honest, his main mistake was, entering. Entering. Obviously, he didn't have the experience, he didn't have the car control needed to do a race like that. So, to be honest, it was a mistake to enter. But at that point, the best thing you can do is remove yourself from the race. I had to do that once because I was, just not concentrating and I was being a bit of a hazard. I removed my... to be honest, it actually happened twice to me. But yeah, in terms of Satoshi Hoshino, I really don't get why the ACO thought that was the Corvette's fault. But, I'm sure
Tracy Crone at least had the decency to... Tracy Crone had the decency... Sorry for interrupting you, Caitlin, but he at least had the decency to bin it on Wednesday and then withdraw the car.
But I'm sure...
I can be savage when I want to be.
Yeah, but don't worry, Chris. I'm sure you're going to agree with all of the other ACO opinions. This is just going to be a one-off, right?
Oh dear.
No, come on,
Anyway,
you don't
Oh
deserve to have
dear,
those
oh
coins.
dear, oh dear.
You actually did really well at not falling further into that joke there. That was completely on me. So you can have some coins out if you like.
anyway, I want to also want to talk about something. That was a very, very unfortunate disaster for Aston Martin, to say the least. They were looking very, very strong in
Yeah.
qualifying, and then they had a brake failure. Well,
Or
both
two.
cars had a brake failure.
Well, actually,
Or three, actually.
Aston.
Did the 68? Did the 98 car have?
Okay, so Aston Martin had the pole, but got hit with a pre-race BOP adjustment. Which first of all,
It's very stupid.
you don't BOP someone the day before a race. If you're going to do that, at least do it properly.
The trouble
You
is,
don't.
that if that hadn't happened, people would be complaining that the Aston Martin was OP and that they should have given it a pre-race BOP adjustment. Yeah,
Basically, you can't win.
basically.
So,
But yeah, it's unfortunate for Chris. It's
Ah,
unfortunate
very,
for
very
Aston
good.
Martin. But it didn't
And,
end up mattering because they both of their cars ended up having massive brake failures. In the space of something like 5 minutes, both of them went into the wall hard. One of them at Indianapolis, which is a very worrying place to have an accident, and the other
You
one.
don't
That was the
also-
95.
Yeah, the other one also
of
went
course,
in
I know
hard.
that feeling all too well.
Of course.
Accident in
Yes.
Indianapolis. Yes, yes. Oh dear.
So
Anyway,
there you
yes,
go.
back to brake failures.
So, but it's unfortunate that they had that happen within the span of, as you said, Caitlin, 5 minutes.
enough.
That's just not good.
That's not good for them.
And I'm just glad that both the drivers were okay, especially Marco Sorensen, because he went into the tires driver's side first. At Indianapolis, he's lucky. He's lucky to have walked away from. In all honesty.
Yeah, and I'm glad that he did.
Certainly. Yes. Now, I do have something that, Chris, you will probably end up spending quite a significant amount of time talking about. The number 68 Ford Chip Ganassi racing machine was disqualified.
Because their fuel tank was too big.
Yes.
Now, unlike the one we will get to, you're gonna run me dry, are you?
Yes, that's the plan.
Jack, you're gonna run me dry.
Yes, for the purpose of comedy.
Yes. But yeah, unlike the other one, this one actually I get, because it was, I believe, about 1.1 liters over capacity, which can happen in a 24-hour race. Like you can get expanding, like it basically you can get like heat expansion and contraction and all sorts of sciencey things.
Oh, but if they're
I sound really dumb right now.
But if they're 1 liter over, then it's horrendous, hideous.
Slightly more French there, Caitlin, but
Sorry, Chris.
The fuel
But,
tank was too big. That was
that was good.
it. Anyway,
And
I'll
we're
just
off the air in France.
we're off in France. How many countries is that now?
I think it's about.
France.
I think it's about 4 times, and they've all been France.
So we're off the air in Brazil. We're off the air in France. We're off the air. I think we might be off the air in America. I'm not sure. We might.
No, America gave us a bit of a reprieve.
I believe we're off the air in a few other countries as well, but I have actually lost count.
Not yet. It's just been France over and over again.
Are you sure? I swear we've been off the air in other countries.
I think it's just been France a lot of times. But anyway.
Okay, no more
We're not
holidays
allowed
in
to
France then.
attend any ACO events now.
No, we're not.
Aw, I really want to go and see them all.
I want to too,
too.
but it's time to make alternate identities, and we shall sneak into France. Anyway, yes.
Christophe Whitfield. There, I've done it.
You are ultimate French. You are now
Je
in
m'appelle
LOLO.
Christophe. Je m'appelle Christophe.
Anyway.
Right. So anyway, of course, there was some excellent GTE action. So GTE Pro has been fantastic all year.
Wasn't it though? Like it was just.
It was the saving grace of the WEC this season, to be honest. Because let's be honest, it was a bit boring in the other classes. But yeah. So GTE Pro.
But well, it wasn't.
Except
I actually thought it was. I thought the entire season was pretty good.
Except in LMP1.
We don't talk about LMP1 because we already have.
I think we should
Okay.
do ASMR anymore. Yeah, so anyway, the number 51 AF Corsa Ferrari took a decisive victory over Porsche and Ford. They did absolutely superb, and they actually dominated a significant portion of the race. And the number 92 Porsche wins the championship after Porsche, of course, took the manufacturer's championship at the previous race.
I will say, I was actually I was really happy to see AF Corsa win. Because,
It was nice.
when was the last time a Ferrari won at Le Mans?
I believe it was 2012.
And it was an AF Corsa car then, I believe.
Well, I
sounds
think
about
one of them
right.
was Scuderia Corsa. Look, 2012, 24 hours of
Or
Le
was it
Mans.
Reese?
No, I don't think Reese won.
Reese's never won, have they?
Let's see if we can.
I don't know, but we'll get to Reese because there's a big development that happened.
Oh yeah, put that
This
in
week we'll get to that.
miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and are therefore covering the ITM thing.
Yes.
Yes. The
Right,
greatest name of ever.
Going to see if I can work out who actually won Le Mans. No, actually, yes, it was AF Corsa that won in 2012.
I
at Le
thought
Mans.
so.
Championship that year as well.
The first ever WEC champion.
Yes, excellent. And of course, the number 92 Porsche, as I mentioned before, won the championship this year. Now, he bankrupted for talking about the thing anymore because we're moving on to GTE Am. You have permission to unleash your wrath upon the world until
Okay.
until I actually dispute what you are about to say.
Me too.
Okay, so first of all, to give everyone listening in Radioland a taste of what's going on. First of all, how's my hair? Second of all, okay, so the number 85, Keating Motorsport Ford GT, for Ben Keating, Jerome Bleekemolen, and Felipe Fraga, won the race on the road. Yet, unfortunately, they were disqualified in post-race scrutineering because their fuel tank was 100 milliliters over capacity. This after having been forced in the final hours to come into the pit lane for nose damage that was sustained hours before, and being given a 55-second penalty for refueling the car too quickly by 0.4 of a second, which is chump change. Now, first of all, are you still with me?
We're still with you, but
Are you still with me? But
carry on.
my wayward son. But
Carry on my wayward son.
there'll be peace when you are done. Okay, so the 85 got a 55-second penalty. They had won by 44, so conveniently they lost their lead plus 11 seconds. So they would have finished second on the road. Yet they didn't, because of the post-race scrutineering. Now, I was talking to someone who is a scrutineer, a veteran scrutineer. I'm not going to mention names, but I was talking to her. And she said to me that basically if the race ran perfectly with the 96-liter fuel tank that was given to the GT, because it's a 2016 Ford GT, they would have gained 78 seconds through that 100 milliliters in track time. They would have gone 78 seconds longer than the Project 1 Porsche.
Okay.
Now, I'm still of the opinion that races should not be decided. Should be decided on track, not in the steward's room afterward. We saw that in Formula 1. We even saw that in the NASCAR truck race at Iowa. But, like, it ruins a good race.
Well,
It really does.
Well, if they didn't get penalized, what would stop people from cheating all the time?
Simple. Don't enter Fords. And I'm not invited to Multimatic. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
so
Larry.
Are you?
Sorry, Larry Holt and you wonderful people.
Are you finished, Chris? Because I have my own opinion on this.
But the problem is, like,
He's not finished.
I get the rules are rules, but sorry, this penalty was far too harsh. In my opinion, it was far too harsh.
Then what's your opinion?
Okay, so Chris is right that races shouldn't have to be decided after the race, and no one likes to see them being decided afterwards. However, it needs to happen because otherwise, as you say, cars would cheat. And you know, if a car gains an unfair advantage, then that is an unfair advantage. The rules are there for a reason. And yeah, it was 100 milliliters over, but as you say, you know, that's 78 seconds of runtime. That's actually quite significant. So yeah,
we did math.
Well done, Chris.
Yes.
So yeah,
we did math.
I don't really care whether it was deliberate or not. It wouldn't have been deliberate. You know, Keating's a great driver, and their team did a great job. But at the end of the day, they did break a regulation, and there aren't multiple regulations for different people, as much as you may say, you know, there are for teams that are French and aren't. I really don't think that is the case. And yeah, the Keating car made a mistake, and that is clearly stated in the rules that is the mistake. That is the price you pay for that mistake. It's the same for everyone, and yeah, Project 1 is the victor.
I agree with Caitlin on this one, actually, because if I want to talk about for a second about last year when TDS and G Drive got disqualified for fuel infringement. Did they not think? Well, did that not prompt everyone who was racing in the 24 Hours of Le Mans to think, right, they've been disqualified for very strict fuel infringement regulations. Perhaps we should try not to be disqualified for the exact same reason. And I think if you're, I mean, I'm not entirely sure if expansion or not expansion was caused by well, if that was the actual case,
I
or
can
it
comment on
started out
that.
with a bigger fuel tank, or whatever it might be. But when it comes to just the general fuel infringement, so obviously they had a they breached a fuel infringement. This makes no sense. They breached a fuel regulation before with refueling and all that sort of stuff. If they've read the regulations and if they'd made sure they weren't doing that, they wouldn't have had these problems. I hope that makes sense. Now, everyone's saying, oh, they should have won and everything. But if they broke the rules, of course they shouldn't win.
Yeah.
And I will say, one thing I already have respect for Ben Keating, but the way he responded after the disqualification, like, if I was a team manager, trust me, I would be appealing. I would be appealing. I would be basically short of eating the scrutineer's head like a Barbie doll, like a child with a Barbie doll. But first of all, that's a pull quote. Second of all, the man Ben Keating is honestly one of the biggest class acts in the sport, and for that, like, we don't deserve people like Ben Keating in the sport. Like, we don't deserve people like him, because he took it on the chin. He said, we'll get him next year, and we'll move on. But he didn't he didn't storm off, or didn't say, oh, the officials did me wrong, like that kind of thing. The man is a true class act, and I think I'm gonna give him a round of applause. I think everyone should join in here.
Yeah.
Can we get some claps?
Clapping is now occurring.
Clapping is occurring because Keating did a great job. It was unfortunate from his side. It's unfortunate for the team because, it's an easy mistake to make. I don't think it would have been expansion because do they weigh the fuel tanks? If they weigh the fuel tanks, there's no way that expansion that wouldn't affect the actual weight of the tank at all. It doesn't work like that.
Well,
it can affect the volume, but it can't affect the weight.
like I think it was the volume that
in that case
was the volume of the fuel capacity.
In that case, I think they should probably change the rule there. But then again, rules are rules. We can argue after the race if the rules need to be changed or whatever. But everyone goes into the race knowing what the rules are, and those are what stick. But anyway,
and we can argue till the pigs come home on this, but
there's no point in appealing
on
this.
whether or not.
Yeah.
And yes, I just said argue till the pigs come home.
As in,
I've been watching a 1980s sitcoms known as no, not Porks.
Okay.
I've been watching a 1980s sitcom recently called Perfect Strangers, where one of the characters basically mangled catchphrases. Like, the actual phrase is argue until the cows come home.
Okay.
I said argue until the pigs come home.
Got it.
Willing to explain each and every one of these if you do need an explanation. Anyway, so Project One took the victory in GTEM, and Project One takes the championship. Now, before we do end up talking about this until the pigs come home, we are going to actually move on from that. So we'll go over your result. You'll just go over results one more time. Yes.
Jack, if Project 1 won, does that make them Project 11?
Yes, it does.
Great.
Yeah, I've decided that's it. That yes. Anyway, right.
I'll give you a free
results?
pass on that because I can't find the Family Fortunes buzzer.
Okay, sorry, Jack.
Right, should we go over the results?
Let's do it.
Right, Chris, would you like to do the honors?
Yes, in LMP1, it was the Toyota number 8 of Fernando Alonso, Kaz Nakajima, and Sebastian Buemi, who won the race and the World Endurance Championship, even though the other two drivers don't seem to count on Formula One
Nando's the
publications,
champion.
Autosport, but yeah, like, they don't seem to count the other two drivers, Autosport, but they had defeated their teammate, the number 7 car for Kamui Kobayashi, Mike Conway, and Jose Maria Lopez. In LMP2, it was the Signatech Alpine DPI of
Very good.
Nico Lapierre, Alexander Negrão, and Pierre Thierry, with second place going to Ho Pin Tung, Gabriel Aubry, and Stefan Riquelme in the Jackie Chan DC Orica, and third place going to the number 28 TDS car of Francois Perotto, Matthew Vaxvier, and Loic Duval. In GTE Pro, it was the number 51 Ferrari of James Collado, Alexander Guidi, and Daniel Serra. Second place was the number 92 Porsche of Michael Christensen, Kevin Estre, and Fred Macavecchi. And in third place was the Brumos number 93 Porsche of Patrick Pile, Nick Tandy, and Earl Bamber. And in GTE Am, officially, it is the number 56 Project One Motorsport Porsche of York Bergmeister, Patrick Lindsay, and Eugenio Perfetti, followed by the number 61 Ferrari of GMW Motorsports of Jeff Siegel, Wei Lu, and Rodrigo Baptista, and finally the WeatherTech Ferrari number 62 of Cooper McNeil, Tony Vielander, and Rob Smith. And
Anyway.
Ben Keating is the winner in all of our hearts.
Spirit of the
He
race,
was
yeah.
Because he's a lad. Because he's a lad.
Sorry,
But
Jack?
we'll gloss over that particular. He did cheat a bit, but we'll gloss over that particular point
It
because
wasn't
it's now-
really cheating, but it was like a technical infringement. Let's call it that.
Anyway, Jack.
Right. With that, it's time to move on to.
Sorry.
Two.
Sorry, I will get that up right now. Oh heck.
Jingle here.
This happens every week. Okay, I will be more
Yes, it
prepared.
does.
I will be more prepared next time. I'm so sorry. Here we go.
Miscellaneous stories
Ow.
and points that we missed, and therefore we're covering now TM. Burn.
You laughed all the way through my jingle.
Oh, well, it wouldn't
You
be an
wanted it
episode of
so
Motorsport
badly and
recently.
didn't even wanted it so badly and didn't even listen to it.
Well, this does happen every single week.
Sorry, Jack.
It wouldn't. No. That's not your fault. It wouldn't be an episode of Motorsport recently without technical difficulties. It's like an Italian car. You don't like it if every single button works. So I'm going to go into my Fiat 500. I'm going to go into my Fiat 500 later on with a sledgehammer and make some stuff not work to give it some extra charm.
Perfect.
Anyway, now since we didn't get to talk about this last week, would we like to briefly go over the Canadian GP and the Texas 600?
Okay, so the Canadian Grand Prix happened at the usual circuit, Gilles Villeneuve. Sebastian Vettel qualified on pole position and drove an excellent race to finish first. However, there was some controversy as he was given a 5-second penalty for rejoining the track unsafely and impeding Lewis Hamilton. As the rule is laid out, this is my opinion on it. As the rule is laid out, he did impede Lewis Hamilton. I think that the penalty was harsh. I think I think the penalty was harsh. I don't think the backlash that it got was justified. So I don't think people should have been quite so taking it quite so personally and being quite so angry about it. These kind of things do happen. To be honest, I think the FIA needs to remember that they have a black and white flag, and I think they need to use that a bit more. Of course, the black and white flag is a warning flag. It basically says to the drivers, don't do that again or you're going to get a penalty. Calm down, basically. I think that if they used that a bit more, it would satisfy everyone, or at least the majority of people. I think it would mean, people wouldn't think that silly things were going unnoticed, and it also wouldn't, it also wouldn't impede the racing. It also wouldn't stop the racing from happening. So yeah, to be honest, that's my solution. I think they should have waived a warning flag rather than an actual 5-second penalty.
Well, they would have if it was Lewis
I disagree.
that had done the same thing.
Well, the FIA have been. I'm actually quite annoyed. The FIA have been quite inconsistent with the way they've given out penalties because obviously
have?
Mexico 2016 comes to mind.
I've seen circulating on social media the comparison between the Vettel incident and the 2016 Monaco Grand Prix.
Yes.
And that, of course, and I think quite a few people will have seen that as well. And to have some consistency, and especially not give, and also not give Vettel a penalty if there wasn't really anything he could have done about that.
Well, okay, so first of all, he did rejoin the track in an unsafe way, and even if he couldn't really have done anything about that at that point, he still made the mistake, and he was still out of control, and that was still dangerous. However, you are right to say there are inconsistencies, and the 2016 incident does spring to mind. I reckon that one of the main reasons why the FIA is inconsistent towards penalties like this is because there is actually a different panel of stewards every time. There are some that remain the same, but they do have extra stewards varying from race to race. Most notably, the driver steward changes. This time out, it was Emanuele Pirro. Not sure who was there at the 2016 Monaco Grand Prix. I have a feeling it was Derek Warwick, but I'm not entirely sure.
So Wolf.
What, sorry?
So Wolf was the steward for that race. I think you'll find.
Who?
Actually, I think you'll find that Toto Wolff
Oh,
was
not Toto Wolff. No.
was on the stewards panel for every blown Lewis Hamilton call.
I disagree. I think that is coincidence. I think it's mainly
Collusion. But
coincidence. I think it's mainly
collusion.
No, I honestly don't think there's any serious collusion. There may be
Collusion.
there may be bias. But bias is
Collusion.
Chris, bias is different from collusion. Sorry, Jack. Anyway.
Isn't this great?
It absolutely is. Whatever the case, I think they need to have a consistent panel of stewards. If they're going to have a driver steward, it should be the same driver steward every time. I don't see why they have stewards that aren't consistent from race to race, and I think that would solve a lot of our problems.
Because it's hard for Toto to pay them off. That's how.
Yes, it is.
It would be hard
is...
to pay.
I doubt Toto has any say in this at all. There is no collusion. If there's anything along those lines, it's bias, not collusion.
Did
There's
you
a
just say
difference.
no collusion?
No collusion.
You just said no collusion. We are.
Yeah.
Let us just say for the record, we do not endorse. We do not endorse orange Cheetos with bad hair pieces and ill-fitting suits, but
This is nothing to do with American politics. This is Formula One.
no. I was joking, of course, because he
knew.
keeps saying no collusion. No... But yeah,
Anyway, so yeah, that was the.
I get your point. There needs to be a consistent steward panel.
Absolutely.
At every meeting.
Anyway, that was the Canadian Grand Prix. Of course, Lewis Hamilton in the end won the race, as much as other people would like to complain about that. Second was Sebastian Vettel, followed by Charles Leclerc, meaning this was the first time all season that Mercedes haven't had both cars on the podium. Fifth place was Max Verstappen, and the remainder of the top 10 So fourth was Bottas, and then the remainder of the top 10 were made up by Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, so the Renault really going strong, Gasly, Stroll, and Kvyat. Those were the top 10. The retirements were Alexander Albon after damage sustained on the opening lap of the race after he got squeezed, and Lando Norris due to a fire melting his rear suspension, which is something that I haven't seen in I don't think I've ever seen before. That is the Canadian Grand Prix. This weekend we are at the French Grand Prix, and my friend Brooke is there, so I wish Brooke the best of weekends. I'm sure he is having a wonderful time, and I don't know if you want to give a preview, because qualifying's already happened. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen qualifying, so...
Okay, never mind
I
then.
can tell you a little bit about it if you want.
No, if qualifying, if Jack hasn't seen qualifying, then we probably shouldn't.
No, I probably won't watch it. I won't watch qualifying.
Okay. Well, I'll steer away from that for now. But in terms of Formula 2, we've already had the Formula 2 race today. Nick de Vries won it and took the lead of the championship with that. My pre-championship prediction is looking good. Second in the race was Sergio Sette Camara, and third was Jack Aitken. Meaning it's now De Vries followed by Latifi, Aitken, Sette Camara, and Giotto in the championship. But tomorrow, reigning GP3 champion Antoine Hubert will be starting from pole position, so we'll see how he can do there. On Mahavir Raghunathan watch,
I was just about to ask that.
he finished last of the finishers. What a surprise!
Excellent. Excellent.
And then as well in Formula 3, Jehan Daruvala won the race today, followed by Robert Schwartzman, and then Yuri Vips, Marcus... No, sorry, that's the championship. Daruvala won, followed by Schwartzman, then PK, Vips, and Bent Viscal, meaning it's now Schwartzman followed by Daruvala, Vips, Armstrong, and Lundgaard in the championship. And that's how they stand for that. However, tomorrow's pole sitter is going to be Alex Peroni, no relation to Didier Peroni.
I was wondering that, actually. Spelt the same?
Spelt differently. Didier Peroni is a Frenchman. Alex Peroni is Australian.
Anyway, right. I think we should talk briefly about the Texas 600. I believe that was Joseph Newgarden that won that.
It was. And actually, it was quite an exciting race.
What an exciting race.
It didn't come down to fuel strategy. It was going to, but then the incident with Colton Herta and Scott Dixon happened.
That could actually be a crucial championship moment, because of course Scott Dixon is... Well, he's quite at the he's very much at the front of the championship, so to speak. Well, he's certainly up there, and of course, having an accident will not help his championship hopes.
And of course, one of the big everyone else was impressed with this. Santino Ferrucci, who finished 4th somehow through attrition, but
Santino Ferrucci is admittedly starting to grow on me.
As a driver, not as a person.
No, the person is you're gonna need the swear jar after this, but
Oh heck.
Oh,
I'm not.
God.
I'm going to censor myself. Radio, but that's radio actually. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't like the person. I don't like the attention he's getting. But my God, is he starting to run good? But unfortunately, like after how he treated Arjun Maini, I'm sorry, but that kid should not have had a ride, honestly.
Anyway, we'll move on. We'll make sure we don't get into the politics of Santino Ferrucci and his moral code.
the race itself was actually quite wide in the final few laps because Alexander Rossi had basically. Can we just talk about Alexander Rossi for a moment? Alexander Rossi is honestly a brilliant driver in the series right now. I think he's one of the best in the series thus far, and like the man can like I'm really impressed with Rossi this season. Like he basically can overtake anything apart from the safety car because you can't overtake the safety car. But you can't overtake the safety car. We're not Scott Goodyear, but
He also can't quite overtake the speed of light or the speed of sound, but he might get there.
Scientists are still working on that.
Sorry, Chris, carry on.
Scientists are still working on that, though.
Be interested to see a Dallara IR18 go faster than the speed of light.
Funny thing, Jack, you couldn't
it'll
see
be-
it. That's the whole point.
enough.
If it went faster than the speed of light, you couldn't see it.
Are you sure about that? But
Yes, because that's how light works. you need
I know
light.
I was doing the John Cena.
You need light to see things. Anyway, so if
But,
it goes faster than light, you don't see it. But anyway, I know Alexander Rossi isn't known for Formula 1, but I rate him the best Formula 1 driver never to score a point.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
can see that. I can see that. Yeah. What was his best in Formula 1
12th.
manner?
12th at the 2015 USA Grand Prix.
Wasn't that his only race?
No, he raced in 5.
Oh gosh, I wasn't paying attention then. Okay. Anyway, whatever the case, I think we should move on from Texas because I have some other interesting news stories for us to discuss. Now, an Olympic-style motorsport event will be launched later in the year. Drivers will represent their countries in GT racing, touring cars, F4, drifting, karting, and sim racing. The event will happen in Rome from October 31st to November 3rd. Now, I was just thinking the other day, wouldn't it be good to have an Olympics, and a motorsport Olympics, and then it's happened? It's amazing.
That is perfect. That is absolutely
Amazing.
perfect. I don't know why I've never heard of that. So is it going to be they're giving out different medals for different like events, or is it going to be a championship kind of thing where they take part in all of those events?
Don't know, but whatever it is, it should be amazing.
I think it's actually. I think it might actually be a little bit like what the SCCA runoffs do.
Okay, that is
They
brilliant.
basically do like national championship, and the first 3 finishers get gold, silver, and bronze medals.
Now, for a long
I was also thinking. Sorry, go ahead.
For a long time, people have been calling to add motorsport to the Olympics. The problem is, everyone seems to think motorsport is just Formula 1. So they're like, oh, we can't add Formula 1 to the Olympics. All the cars are different. Well, obviously, you don't add Formula 1. You add something similar, which is like, probably runs a Formula 3 or Formula 4 spec or whatever. But another of the arguments against it has been something like, oh, but it's not, humans don't do it, the car does. And I'm like, okay, so how do you explain shooting? How do you explain equestrian? How do you explain, like, flippin' canoeing? It's...
Curling.
Well, no, curling's much more, like, human-based, but anyway. Whatever the case, I think that...
it would make the Olympics far more interesting.
I honestly don't see why motorsport isn't an Olympic event. I really think there needs to be something like that. And, it's it could be a team sport, it could be drivers and a small team of mechanics that go representing their country. Yeah, I can absolutely see that happening, and I love to speculate about who would do it as well. I think that's for another episode, but yeah, I love to speculate.
The karting part of it. I'm getting I'm old enough to remember the the annual karting event they did in Bercy in France. And how the I think it was the Masters race, the one that the Formula One drivers did.
Well, this won't actually be a karting race. It will actually be a karting slalom.
Oh, what?
A what?
Karting slalom.
So it's just going to be a slalom?
Yes.
Well, that's rubbish.
Oh, so it's autocross.
Yes.
What
So
other
it's autocross.
what other racing categories are they going to butcher?
No, that should all be fine. But for some reason, they referred to sim racing as digital racing.
Oh golly,
Well, it is,
I've heard,
sort of.
We will use technology to do racing.
I've heard of.
As long as it's not Forza Motorsport 7.
No, if it's Forza Motorsport 7, I'm not watching. I'm actually going to boycott the event.
Okay, I've heard of it being called sim racing, and I've heard of it being called esports, but never digital racing.
Digital racing.
I just hope they use an actual sim. You know, like a proper. So, for example, like
iRacing.
yeah, like
iRacing.
iRacing or Rfactor 2, not Forza or like, no offense, Jack, Project Cars.
Wow, we get it. You have a PC. You've made that perfectly clear at this point. Anyway, before we rip each other apart on what.
So what are we?
Sims
So what are we
Sims-
saying that? Are we saying that Caitlin's an elitist now? Like, what is it? Like,
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's true. Before we
We are
tear,
not-
before
we are
tear-
not a-
Whatever floats your Xbox.
we are not elitist.
before we tear each other apart on whatever Sims we think are real and are realistic and what Sims we think are good, I think we should move on to the next story, which is rather interesting. Chris, would you like to tell us about this?
Yes. It is the return of Reese.
Right.
They will be running at Petit Le Mans
Yes.
in October, and first of all, I have to say, get in there.
Get in there.
Everyone likes Reese. Anyway, so that's some good news, I'd say. Do they have a confirmed driver lineup yet?
They do not.
Me, pick me, I'll drive it.
Caitlin Penny, Jack McKenzie, Chris Whitfield, but
Yes.
Yes, that sounds like a brilliant idea.
Reese, make it Giuseppe, make it happen. But
Despite the fact, do any of us have a driver's license? Jack, do you have yours? yet?
I have a learner driver's license.
You have a learner's. Okay, so none of us have a full driver's license.
That doesn't
Admittedly,
matter. You just need a race license.
admittedly, you don't need one, but still, it helps.
You just need a race license, and do any of us have a race license?
No.
Be a small issue. And on that minor disappointment, we'll move on to another sports car racing story.
yes, Goodyear is back in international sports car racing. For the first time, I believe, since. Oh, I'm trying to remember when the last time that was.
It's the olden times.
Since I think the 1960s. And
Alright.
they'll be running with I believe the LMP2 class, replacing Dunlop as the tire supplier for the LMP2 class.
Interesting.
Which is great news, honestly.
And if they start doing well, they may end up being the tire supplier on fire.
Oh.
Sorry.
By the way, as many of you know, first of all, I'm really, genuinely looking forward to how, Goodyear gets on as a tire supplier. But first of all, I have to recommend a documentary for those that haven't seen it. It's called Tire Wars. It highlights the 1988 and 1994 tire wars between Goodyear and Hoosier that ran in NASCAR. It was through NASCAR Man. It's on his YouTube channel, and I highly recommend watching it if you haven't seen it. It's very well done.
Anyway, now, because we are short for time, don't get too excited. But the hypercar regulations were confirmed throughout the week, and most sports car fans are not particularly happy about this, because it's it is a set of regulations, to be perfectly honest.
I'll be happy about it if it works and if it actually happens. I'm not convinced
Yes,
it's
I'll be
actually...
happy about it if there's actual cars on the track, which
Yeah,
I
true.
doubt there will be.
Yeah, I don't want to comment much on it because, it might work, but I'm not convinced. Really, at the minute, it's just a set of regulations. For me to get excited about it or whatever, I need to actually be shown that it's gonna happen. So, yeah.
Anyway, so from memory, there are two different sets of regulations. They're mainly the same for the most part, but one involves creating a prototype from scratch that is based off a hypercar, and then one of them involves actually using a road-going hypercar in the race.
Which-
Now, I believe both of these sets of regulations, they both use a hybrid system, so not departing too much from the old LMP1
The
regulations.
hybrid system apparently is optional.
Which
It is, but I reckon it would not be a good idea. It wouldn't be the best idea to not run the hybrid system.
I think it's a really bad idea to make that optional. I think that, if you're going to have a hybrid system, everyone should have it. However, it's really expensive. And to be honest, I think it would probably be better and you'd probably get a bigger grid size if there was just no hybrid system, if it was banned.
I actually agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. However, it is it is the pride and joy of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, because obviously we saw that hybrid technology get watered down into road cars, which is exactly what people want from Le Mans. So people like that. We might talk a little bit more in depth about that as some of the cars get released and what have you. But we unfortunately don't have all day to talk about the hypercar regulations, so we might just move on from that to Ford's special new car.
Who?
What was released was an image of what looks like a Ford GT, and apparently this car will be an extreme version of their GTE racer. Now, I'm not entirely. Some have speculated it's a hypercar. However, apparently Ford have said they aren't interested in the hypercar regulations. So I think it will be one of two things. One, it will be an updated version of the GTE car to future-proof it for the privateer team. So it might be a Ford GT-LM Evo, or what it will be is it will be a track day special version of the Ford GT-LM that very rich people will be able to buy.
Can't comment, haven't seen
Or
it. Sounds
they-
good.
Or they could be working with IMSA on the DPI 2.0 regs.
It's possible.
Because they are actually really interested in DPI.
Anyway, this car will be released at the Goodwood Festival of Speed this year.
Or maybe Ford is saying that, or maybe Ford just basically played their cards close to the vest and are actually building a hypercar.
See what you did
We
there.
don't know.
So whatever this car will be, it will be released on the 4th of July. Actually, that's surprisingly close.
Before the fireworks.
Anyway, now we don't actually have a jingle for this one, unfortunately, but we could try screaming it if you wanted to. We have Manta Watch, which of course, that was really
Our
good, but-
favorite. Okay, so our favorite foxtail, as many people out here know, the Nürburgring 24 Hours is happening at the minute, and the number 122 Opel Manta had an unfortunate incident with Olaf Beckman at the wheel. They are working on the car, and they're confident that she'll be out again at some point. And this is the best news. This is the best story of them all. They have some help.
Oh, that's good. Who's helping them?
FEV Racing.
Okay.
With their because their Seat Cupra is still running. They are actually helping the. They're helping the Manta crew with their car.
That's really
Now,
nice of them.
I think the Spirit of the Race award should actually be awarded to both of those teams. So well done, Manta, and well done.
And let's get it. Let's get her to the finish, and basically when that thing crosses the line, I'll be like, yes, get in there, get in there. I hope they get it.
Like, hopefully this car finishes on like the ARC car. Well, the ARC.
It's basically that
the ARC, whatever it is.
ARC Bratislava. Basically, you know what this actually kind of reminds me of? Like, and I gotta say this, I love the camaraderie in the series. And
so.
It reminds me actually of that Beatles song. I'm sure we all know what it is.
Baby, you can drive my car.
Wrong one.
Yellow Submarine.
No, not Yellow Submarine. That
Hasn't started raining yet.
I believe is leading. I believe the Grello Submarine is actually.
Nice one.
But no. A Little Help from My Friends.
Ah.
That is the song, cause like, I swear to God, they are literally that song. Like, they are getting by with a little help from their friends, and it's a fan favorite. Like they're replacing the suspension as we speak. In
terms of the actual accident, it kind of looked like it was spooked by the Mercedes coming up on its inside and just drifted out into the car on the outside, which was unfortunate.
BMW turned down on it.
No, okay, the BMW certainly didn't turn down on it. I think, if anything, the Manta came up. But anyway, as much as I don't want to blame the Manta, I think it was probably the Manta's fault. Sorry.
Anyway, whatever the case,
but don't retire the Manta yet.
It's the Nürburgring 24 hours, as told by the Beatles. So
yes.
We need an N24 Beatles soundtrack. Now, our final point of the day is at the top of this hour, you'll be able to tune into the Oz and Z combined 24 Hours of Le Mans. Seeing me race, if you so please. I put the link to that in the live chat just now, and we are a bit down in the number 64 Corvette, but we'll try and make a comeback and get back in the race. And on that note, I think it's time to end. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll roll the credits in just a moment's time. I've been Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic today has been the wonderful Chris Whitfield and the perfect Caitlin Penny commentary with me trying a new adjective. Thank you to @FinnickHour on Instagram for doing the graphics that you've seen on your screen today. They've been fantastic as always. Link to all those pages in the description below. On special, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye for now. Ta-ra.
Forget Nakajima and Remy. Nando's the champion. Nando's the champion. Toyota hybrid and Nando a champion of the world. Endurance champion.